Please give it up for Adam Linn.
I leaned in, and with my arms spread wide, I experienced the most passionate kiss I'd ever known in my entire life. Falling in love and technical rock climbing have a lot more in common than many people realize. Both endeavors engender quite a great deal of anxiety before you ever even leave the ground. In both love and rock climbing, you grab onto every tiny little finger hole, foothold for a slight bit of progress, but most of the time you're just hanging on for dear life. And also with love and rock climbing, if you do fall, you don't know what could end up getting broken. So it was the fall of 1995, and I was a student at the Louisiana Center for the Blind, which is an adult training center where people go and learn to improve their braille skills and learn to use canes more efficiently. So I had two things on my mind at this point. Stacy from Philadelphia and an upcoming bus trip to New Mexico. Now, the purpose of the trip to New Mexico, it was our final trip. It was really a send-off to all of us who had been students there for 9 months, was to teach us the basics of technical rock climbing, which meant scaling a 50-foot rock face using pitons and ropes and carabiners. Somewhat perilous. My secret agenda was to use the cover of the trip to finally make my move on Stacy. Now, I was 23 years old, and I had never really been in love before. In college, a few flings, a couple one-night stands, maybe a girl for a week or two, but never a real, honest-to-God girlfriend. Stacy was about a year or two older than me. She had lost a lot of her vision due to complications brought on by juvenile diabetes. And as I said, she was from Philly, and she was very Philly. Extremely, extremely Philly. Very tough, very no-nonsense. I mean, her laugh exploded like this braying honk that filled the room. It was like a cracked bell, but it was wonderful at the same time. First time I ever heard her speak at morning meeting, I thought she sounded like a mafia girlfriend from a Scorsese film. But it's funny how love works. Within a week, I was finding myself waiting after class, kind of accidentally running into her and having lunch always next to her, following her back from class to where we lived in the apartment. I wasn't really a stalker or anything. At some point, my best friend at the center, a consummate beer drinking buddy, Ryan, pulls me aside and is like, "Hey, I know what's going on here, buddy. You've been bit by the bug, the love bug." And I was embarrassed, but it was true. I had indeed been bitten by the love bug, and I needed to figure out what to do about it. The only slight wrinkle in my plan was that Stacy claimed to have a boyfriend, kind of a long-term, serious boyfriend. But it was 1995. There was no Facebook. There were no cell phones. There was no problem as far as I could see. He was in Philadelphia. We're in Louisiana. Very far away. One thing I had going for me was that everyone who worked at the center was very pro this relationship. And Mr. Whittle, the Braille instructor, would always ensure that I was there to give some elementary lessons. I was an ace, so I could always be there to help her along. Or on cane travel trips, the instructor would always give us the most arduous journeys so that we'd have a lot of time to spend together. Our trip was coming up. The bus trip was coming very shortly. And the night before the trip, we actually went to some friends of mine's house. They were a blind couple who had a son for a barbecue. And I knew that Stacy very much wanted to get married and be a mother and have a family. So when we got there, the kid was about 8 years old. So I made a real show out of playing with him and kind of filling that paternal role. I mean, I do like kids, and I didn't mind playing with them, but I mean, there was a little theater involved. At one point, I think he was trying to go to bed, and I'm like, "Come on, I'm a Brahma bull, get on my back, kid!" And I could feel the heat from Stacy's heart just melting, seeing me in this role. So. In keeping with getting us together, the next morning as we get into the bus, the head of the center is like, "Oh, I got a seat for you two, I got a seat for you, I'm going to put you two in a seat together." So if you ever decide to take a bus trip from northern Louisiana to New Mexico, be aware there's something in between called Texas, which is large, as large as a country like Germany, say. Texas is really, really, really big and flat and hot, and there are very few good roadside restaurants. But it is perfect if you're trying to make a move on your seatmate. A lot of time to kind of cuddle under a shared sweatshirt and feed each other pecan sandies. And when she fell in my lap in Abilene and stayed that way till Midland, I was like, okay, we definitely have something going on here. Well, we were a fairly large group, and so only half of us could go and immediately start climbing rocks, and the other half, which included me and Stacy, we were sent to Juarez, Mexico, which is across the border from El Paso, and is actually one of the most dangerous cities in the Western Hemisphere. So we were a gang of blind life skill students going to drink cheap beer and tequila and get into as much trouble as we could for a few days before we went to climb. So I was in love. So while my friends sat at the bar and drank tequila and had a great time, I would dutifully follow Stacy to the marqueta to help carry stacks of woolen blankets and cactus rain sticks, and she liked piñatas quite a bit. I remember in particular a Tweety Bird piñata she bought that I helped carry for 8 hours in the sun. She took pity on me and bought me a colorful sombrero, which I wore. And I was in love, right? So we would, every night, we'd take the booty back to her hotel room, and we'd sit there and get on the bed and make out a little bit and talk about life and what a great time we're having it. I was in heaven. So the last night in Juarez, we actually slipped away from the group early and got a cab and went back to her hotel room, which is now filled with Mexican loot. Pushed the Tweety Bird piñata to the foot of the bed and spent the night together, getting to know each other. So I was very, 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 very happy, to say the least. Around 6 a.m., maybe 6:15, there's a pounding on the door of the hotel. It's the downstairs manager. There's a phone call. Stacy has to come get it. There's some kind of an emergency. She has to come get it. So she drags herself out of bed. She goes, and I'm laying there with Tweety Bird, and she's gone for a long time, and it seems endless. And she finally comes back in, and the energy is a lot different than it had been. And like I said, she was very tough and very no-nonsense. She got to the point very quickly. And she said, let me tell you, that was Bobby, my boyfriend. And I hadn't talked to him in quite a while, and I guess he was somewhat suspicious, and maybe I told him a little about us hanging out a lot, and he seemed upset, and I was upset, and he started crying, and then I told him what we did, and I started crying, and I said I was scared and that I might never get married or be a mother, and he said that he was scared, that he was losing me, and that he loved me, and did I want to get married? And she said, and I said yes. And there I was, Tweety Bird on the mattress. And the pain was definitely sharp. I mean, I definitely had been shot in the heart with an arrow, and it was a pain like I never felt before. But it was also heavy, like someone had instantaneously attached an anchor to the arrow. It's a pain I've never felt before or since, and hope to never feel again. But I knew I never should have obviously gotten involved with a woman who had a serious boyfriend. But I was young and I was in love. I was scared. I didn't know if my life would turn out as I wanted it to. And I know Stacy was scared. She had just lost her vision and was going through a lot at that time in her life. All those fears were very, very abstract compared to how I felt a few hours later as I faced the 50-foot rock cliff that I was to scale. The only thing between me and imminent death was my very hungover friend Ryan holding the rope that was attached to my harness. So as I get ready to go, he comes, puts his arm around me, and goes, don't forget to make love to the mountain, buddy. You'll be fine. So he was in Texas, you could get away with saying things like that. So I start climbing, and I was actually pretty good at it. I really enjoyed rock climbing, and I'm climbing higher and higher and higher, and I can hear Ryan down below me, like pretending to let go of the rope and pretending someone else should have it and it's broken. Things like that. And I'm aware of how far away he sounds. When you're 40 feet up on a cliff, people below you sound pretty far away. And I climb a little bit further, and I think I'm getting very close to the top. And I'm standing on this ledge, and my arms are shaking, and my knees are shaking. This huge, pregnant belly of shale is in front of me, and I can't get over it. And I go to the left, and I try and like scramble up and over. Can't do it. Go to the right, and I try and wiggle my way up, and I can't. And I hear the climb instructor on the megaphone yelling, "Hey, good job, you almost made it. You can come on down." And I'm standing there, I'm like, my arms shaking. Almost made it? Like, I can't give up. I can't give up on this climb. I'm not going to give up on life. I'm not going to give up on love. I'm going to do this. And I spraddled my legs as far as I could to left and right. I don't think it was very dignified. And I reached as high as I could, and I tucked in my behind, and I just scooched up and over that belly of rock like a gecko and made it to the top. And I heard people 50 feet below me cheering and the climb instructor yelling, "You made it." And I was overwhelmed, completely unconscious of what I was doing. I just leaned in and had that passionate kiss with the rock face in front of me. And in love, we don't always get what we want. In fact, I've learned we rarely do. And unlike in rock climbing, there is no top, there's no end game. With love, you just have to let yourself fall and see what happens. And so when I was done kissing the rock, I signaled to Ryan, and I leaned back into the harness and I let gravity take me. Thank you.